And we're live, ladies and gentlemen.
No, don't tell me we're live. No, not that.
Why?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Of the People Live.
Hey.
Can we call this like the kibitzing, the pre-show stuff?
Yeah.
Right? Am I allowed
Yeah.
to introduce Yiddish kibitzing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
In fact, why not have a Yiddish word of the week? I used to have a Yiddish pull-off calendar when I worked
I don't even want to touch that, but okay.
No, I worked at a pharmacy that was run by a Jewish family, and the grandparents would always use Yiddish words, and I would never have any idea what they were saying. So for Christmas, they got, or Hanukkah, I don't know if whatever, they got me a gift, and it was a pull-off calendar of Yiddish words.
Got it. Well, awesome. A lot of them start with F, verklempt, verkakta. I mean, for shimmel. we can go with all that later. But
okay.
We're not starting out with WTO, but I as we prep for the show and you sort of see the news of the day, the thing that struck me was the I hate to use the word stupidity, but there was this event over the weekend where climate protesters,
yeah,
6 of them glued themselves to the runway in Munich. And you go, okay, they sit in front of traffic and cars, but think about that. So they glued themselves to the runway. First of all, the whole concept of gluing yourself to a street, you kind of go,
gluing yourself to anything.
Well, you think they're probably sniffing glue before they use the glue would be my guess in all of this.
I'm guessing, but, yes.
So 60 flights were canceled. And I'm just wondering, what do you think would happen if one of the planes accidentally, and we're not preaching violence here, but what do you think would happen if one of the planes accidentally ran over one of these people that were glued to the runway? Do you think we'd have any more gluing to the runway stuff?
I think we would. I think we would see activists very quickly ungluing themselves from the ground and running away. Like, what?
Right. The fact that they glued themselves down, they clearly have come unglued to glue themselves to the runway, but in front of an aircraft? And here's the other thing I don't get. The whole thing
are like the worst because of all the carbon emissions, though, Robert. They're the devil. If you dare fly in a plane.
Hang on. First of all, if it's a Boeing aircraft, maybe a part will fall on you.
You might crash.
You might crash. But can we go back to this whole climate thing? So, by the way, climate change is, right? Carbon dioxide is the enemy, and climate change, carbon dioxide is too much. It's going to, kill the world. By the way, in the atmosphere, do you know the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere?
It's a lot. It's high.
No, it's not. It's 0.1%.
Oh, really?
It's 0.4%. And of the 0.4%, do you know how much is man-made?
How much?
3%. Of the
4/10 of the 0.4%?
Of the 0.4%. So this is why, but trust the science. Now, I just, in any event, it gets a little crazy to me. So I just thought I'd put that out there.
That is definitely worth. That is definitely worth gluing yourself to the road and inconveniencing the thousands of people on those flights.
It just amazes me. But
because if you think about it, Robert, think about it. The downstream effect that has is not just the 60 flights that were canceled. All of those planes are connector planes for somebody else. All of those crews are connector for crews. Like, those people are such buttholes. I can't even handle it. Well, I hate climate activists.
I think you should unglue them from the runway and then glue them to the wings of the plane as the plane takes off and just see how they like the flight. Just no, folks, we're not preaching violence here on Of the People, but you just sit there and shake your head and go,
yeah. And while they're streaming to Instagram on their iPhones that they got from slave labor in Africa. But whatevs. Whatever.
Yep, got it.
It's cool.
Roll them, Smokey.
All right, y'all. Let's get ready for the monologue.
Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Thanks for joining us. What real leadership looks like. In the early stages of the American Revolution, then General George Washington suffered defeat after defeat at the hands of the British, most notably the Battle of New York, then the Battle of Philadelphia, only to be followed up with the endurance that they had to put up with at Valley Forge, for the brutal winter that they had to endure. Ultimately, however, to go on to victory at Yorktown against General Cornwallis. So real leadership is about many things. Most of all, it's about character. It's about keeping your word or saying what you're going to do and then do what you say. And it's also about forging ahead in the face of hostilities or adversaries to achieve the goal you need to. Looking around in today's world, where is an example of leadership? And the only thing I can see right now and come up with is actually in the Southern Hemisphere, in South America, in Argentina, who in November elected President Javier Milei, who was an economist. He was billed as, or he was, they were saying he was going to be a tyrant. He's going to trash the economy. I don't know how you could trash the economy in Argentina more than what he inherited. Right. And then he was going to be or Argentina's version of Donald Trump. He gets elected. What ends up happening? He's a radical, of course. He produces these radical reforms, and in 4 months, turns around an economy that has been moribund and just really the laughingstock of South America, which was once the economic engine of South America, in a mere 4 months. What were these radical reforms? Let's see. Privatization of industry, cutting federal regulation, promoting entrepreneurship, and most of all, the most radical idea of all is he cut government spending. Now, that is radical, don't you think? The result of all of this is that in 4 months, in January, he produces a budget surplus, balances the budget, produces a budget surplus for the first time since 2008. They have a budget surplus for the first, not only January, but 4 quarters. And he also devalued the currency. Let's not forget about that. Very radical, of course. And then inflation drops from triple digits to 8.8%. Because being fiscally responsible as a leader is what real leadership starts with. You live within your means. As we talked about it, if you or I overspend, no one's bailing us out unless, of course, you have a student loan, in which case you can apply for a student loan bailout. But contrast the leadership, the radical leadership, because he balanced the budget and cut spending, the radical leadership in Argentina versus the tried and true and trusted leadership we have in this country. And let's see what the numbers are. The U.S. debt stands at $34 trillion. That means we have spent $34 trillion more than we can pay off. And the U.S. deficit spending, which means how much more we're spending on a yearly basis versus what we take in, is $1.7 trillion in 2023. And we have already documented how under the former Obama administration and now the Biden administration, words and deeds do not align. They'll say one thing, they'll do another as long as it meets these ideological goals. So come November, maybe we need a radical revolution like they had in Argentina. And maybe we need to find a figure similar to Javier Milei in this upcoming election. And to all of you who are listening, I wonder who that might be. If you have any ideas, let me know about it. But real leadership is what we need in this country, and real leadership is not what we have. And I think most of America is starting to understand that. Let's see what happens in November. And joining me now for the main part of the show, my lovely co-host, Ericka Redic.
Hello, Ericka. Robert. Hello.
So I think you're a real leader. See, I think you're a real leader because you are not afraid to say what you mean and do what you say.
Yes.
My book, that makes you a leader.
Exactly. Even when it's inconvenient. We were actually, Robert, I think we were just talking about this recently. When you're a business owner like you and I are, and
Correct.
something goes wrong with one of our employees, it doesn't matter if it's the employee that messed it up. It's my fault. Are they in a position that they should be? Was I doing a good job of managing them? How did I help contribute to this problem ultimately? Because I'm the one who's going to be responsible for it.
Right.
And
No,
so
I understand.
I love that. I love that I call it radical responsibility.
It's radical responsibility. And look, to go through this, so I mean, to what he ended up doing, right? I mean, Argentina's inflation was 287%. It's now 8.8% inflation.
I mean, that's
In
but the Fed
wait,
can't do it.
wait, but in 4 months, right? 4 months in January, he goes from November, he devalues the currency, right? He cuts the budget because, and oh, by the way, he was an economics professor. So who clearly knows nothing about monetary policy, of course, right?
Obviously.
As opposed to someone like President Biden, who has been in office forever, and hasn't held a real job outside the public sector forever. So in January, they recorded a $589 million budget surplus 4 months after taking office. So if they can balance the budget there, why can't we balance the budget here?
Because we have too many PhDs in charge.
Well, see, I have a much simpler theory.
Oh.
Trying to wean a politician off of spending OPM, other people's money or tax dollars, is like trying to wean a heroin addict off of a drug, right? I mean, as long as they're spending other people's money, as long as you spend other people's money and it's not, their money, but I sit here and I look at that, and they called him, he was going to be a tyrant. He was a radical. He was going to destroy the economy. The IMF even warned that he was going to be disastrous. But now they've actually right. Now they've released the loan bailout money that the IMF wouldn't reach out. And again, deregulated, got rid of price controls. Now, I just sit here and go, that's what leadership is. And that's what we don't have. We have so an ideological agenda. I mean, the HHS, and we'll talk about it later in the show. Becerra, the Secretary Becerra, was testifying before Congress, and basically he's punishing hospitals that will not do transgender surgery on kids by they won't get government federal funding. Yep. And not only does it hurt the hospital in general, it means they're not going to get Medicare funding, Medicaid funding. That's an ideological agenda. That's not leadership.
Yep. Literally, if people don't realize how much actually the federal government sends to hospitals for indigent healthcare, as they call it. Basically, people who can't afford it, illegal immigrants, homeless people. You fill in the blank. It is absolutely astonishing to me.
All right. And I want to segue because, I didn't, we have a guest on the show. We have Delaware GOP chairwoman, Julianne Murray, because the other ideological thing being driven here is Second Amendment. They're taking away your Second Amendment rights. And Delaware just passed, signed by the governor, another gun grab we want to talk about. So I know folks were jumping around a lot, but we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. But if Ms. Murray is here,
yes, she is.
We would like to bring her into the stream, please.
All right, here we go. Hello. Oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Ms. Chairwoman.
Double check in your settings that your mic is set up. We can't hear you, but if you can.
But this is why we love technology.
We do. It's so good. Yes,
actually,
can put
you love
in the chat. Let's see. Not muted on my end. What you can do, Julianne, something very common is if it's just funky, just leave and come back. Sometimes that fixes it. All right.
Okay.
All right. We're going to bring her back in the meantime.
Right. And so just when you bring her back in, so the Delaware law that they passed, let me see what they end up calling it, the Handgun Qualifier Purchase Permit, HQPP.
Right. Okay.
And of course, it's the same tropes, right? It's going to reduce gun violence, suicides, homicide, and crack down on illegal straw purchases.
Of course.
Where have we heard that
it's
before?
going to fix everything. Okay,
Right,
Chairwoman, can we hear you now? Oh, no. Oh, goodness. Okay. At the bottom gear icon with the settings, and it has the right microphone selected. It should be a microphone option.
If you look at the box, the rectangular box on the bottom, there's in the middle, it says settings.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. Benjamin is going to send you a link in the private chat to our green room to help see if we can work it out. You got that, Benjamin? All right.
And Miss Chairwoman, we will get this to work. So
all right. So do you want to go back to the? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go back, because the leadership issue is a broad-based issue, right? Because it's not just leadership in this country, but you know, if you step back and the lack of leadership in this country, starting with fiscal responsibility, because if you don't pay, I mean, we can talk about lack of leadership on lots of levels, the border, other areas, monetary policy and fiscal responsibility, because the connection is runaway government spending is what caused the Argentine economy to tank for for 20 years, and I might be off for a couple of years, and they were the pristine example of an economic engine in South America for so long. And then obviously the leftists get in there. It's all government run and government controlled, and they're printing money, so to speak. And this runaway government spending causes the economy to collapse and the living wage to collapse and the level of poverty to rise.
Yep.
In 4 months, he comes back in, right, and cuts government spending. The analogy to this country is the same. We have a $34 trillion debt, U.S. debt. We have a $1.7 trillion deficit spending, which means we're spending more. We're heading towards Argentina.
Yeah.
So if they can do it in Argentina, why can't we? Because that's where real leadership starts.
Yeah, there's no political will for it. Our politicians are cowards.
Of both parties, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Of both parties.
Absolutely. The fact that we can't have a serious conversation about entitlements when that is like 75% of the budget, and we have a population collapse that will not support Social Security and Medicare, plus all the corruption and fraud. Like that is a no for you to talk about. Right. And it's like,
so we're gonna give this a label. The label, what we want and what we're asking for in this country is what I would call the great entitlement debate. We need to debate what should be the role of the federal government. What services should the federal government provide? What services should they not provide? And on services that they do provide, can the private sector provide it more efficiently?
And that great question. Can they provide it more efficiently and more effectively? You know, that's been my big thing is, there's a lot of government programs that are meant to take the place of basic human empathy and compassion. Like the government cannot replace human beings helping other human beings. The benefits.
Well, they can neutralize it though, which is what I would argue that they've attempted to do by sanitizing the process. Yeah. And taking the functions that used to be provided by towns and churches and synagogues and temples and whatnot in terms
families.
Of families and replacing them with the government, right?
Yep.
And the government doesn't do it that efficiently. So the problem, again, the great entitlement debate, and the last number I thought I heard was actually 2/3 of the economy is either healthcare or Social Security.
Yep.
Now, I could be wrong with my numbers. I haven't really boned up on those lately. But at the end of the day, it is of the federal budget. It's at least 2/3 of the federal budget.
It is.
That is off the table for discussion. So so when everyone talks about it, they're only talking about the 1/3 anyway. What about the 2/3? Because you're now getting to the point where at this rate, the deficit debt alone is going to exceed the GDP. The deficit alone is going to exceed the GDP.
The interest payments alone,
Right.
I think it's something like 10 or another 10% of our budget or something like that is just the interest
Yeah,
payments.
don't hold me to the numbers.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
you guys go to the world debt or the US debt clock, and it'll show you there. It's outrageous.
right. So that's one form of leadership, and the parallels between the U.S. heading towards what Argentina just left with a new presidential leadership, right,
Yeah.
is should not be lost on America. I mean, you don't don't cry for me, Argentina. Well, don't cry for me, the U.S. Right? I mean, I'd rather right. I mean, it's just
Yep.
Well,
and speaking of not crying for me, we're gonna be working with ASIC on the Israel Appreciation Day, and so let's
July
show
10th
July
in
10th.
Washington, D.C.
What?
IsraelAppreciationDay.com. Roll them.
All right.
Why Israel Appreciation Day? Because no one is telling the Israel story about why Israel's existence is so important, not just as a Jewish state and not just as an ally of the United States, but for all the positive achievements Israel has contributed to the world in science, technology, medicine, human rights, religious freedoms, rule of law, democracy, and so on. We need to start winning the public relations information war and change the narrative, especially among our younger generations. We need to get the information out there and arm those people who understand the seminal importance of Israel to the world. And being the Jewish homeland doesn't begin to tell that story of why Israel is so important. It's something we all can come together on, and honestly, it's something we all must come together on. It is imperative the general public understands the nature of the very special relationship between Israel and the United States and Israel's importance to the world. So please join us on July 10th in Washington, D.C. as we celebrate Israel Appreciation Day. For those who can't be there in person, we'll be streaming live on the web at IsraelAppreciationDay.com. Never again is now. Never again is now. Okay.
We're going to try this again.
Madam Chairwoman, ladies and gentlemen of the people, I would like to bring on Julianne Murray, the chairwoman of the Delaware GOP. Julianne, welcome to Of the People.
Thank you so much for having me. And, technology, when it works, but when it doesn't, here we are.
Definitely doesn't.
So we worked it. I have no idea. This setup works all the time, but whatever. I'm here. Glad to be here. Thanks for having
me. First of all, you're in fine voice. Second of all, we've come to understand that Lord Benjamin can work magic, which is why we gave you to him to figure out all the technology.
And even there, we're doing sign language because I'm scrolling through the different stuff and going, yes. I was like, it's all good, man. We can do this. It's all good.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I know you're on a tight schedule. So I want to talk about the new law that the governor just signed. And I know it's been there's been a lawsuit filed, but tell us about the law, because we like to stay up on all the gun grabs that the different states are doing, especially, obviously we go back to Heller in 2008, but Bruin in 2022. What's the new law? And I know how they're trying to sell it, but what's the new law in Delaware?
Garbage. And one would think that for those so yes, I am the state party chair, but I'm also a practicing attorney. And so I have, been a one-woman wrecking machine in Delaware, not on firearm stuff. We have a subject matter expert here named Francis Pileggi who files the gun grab challenges. We had one 2 years ago when I was running for attorney general that is still being litigated as it relates to, quote, assault weapons and magazine restrictions and age restrictions. Those are still pending, but the newest one is a permit to purchase that they have been working for 4 years to get through. We in Delaware had the Democrats have a supermajority in our Senate and are 2 seats away from having a supermajority in the House. Very, very socialist, progressive, activist legislators. So what they're saying is the permit to purchase is so that people are trained when they go to buy their weapons. But those of us in this world know that that is a bunch of garbage. Criminals do not follow the law. And when I ran for AG in 22, it was because our current attorney general doesn't prosecute, I'm not lying here, 85% of gun crimes.
What?
Come on.
Wait.
5% of the charges.
Okay. Wait, how can you not prosecute gun crimes and then come try to take people's guns?
Don't be logical here. You can't be rational with irrational people.
My bad.
So when I ran in 22, I mean, it may have improved slightly, but in 22, I hammered this woman over the fact that she was dropping 85% of gun crimes, and that basically, I mean, so there are certain ones like person prohibited charges where, you have somebody who has a criminal background, has a felony background, so they are prohibited, that have minimum mandatory sentences. Those were the most likely to be dropped. It's such BS.
Let me ask you a question, Madam Chairwoman, or Julianne, if I may. I live in New Hampshire, we're a constitutional carry state. Next state over, Vermont, constitutional carry state. Before this legislation was signed, what was the law or the ability to carry or carry concealed in Delaware before this permitting, clearinghouse, record keeping, training, requirement was signed?
Okay, so in Delaware is not a constitutional carry state. We do have the ability to carry concealed that is provided for in the Delaware Code, and it is, I'm going to use the word managed by the Attorney General's office, ironically, and our Superior Court in each of the counties. We are also an open carry state. And I do a law show on Saturdays from 12 to 2 on the radio and on a stream, where one of the things that I talk about is open carry means open. You can't have it on your hip and have a shirt over it. I mean, they will do anything and everything they can to call it, that you are not carrying it openly and notoriously. But this permit to purchase, so you could buy a gun, you went through the normal, there's the normal kind of background checks, federal and state background checks, but you could buy a gun. Now, we are limited right now on the, and again, it goes 2 years back, on the types of weapons that can be bought here. The so-called assault weapon, there's no such thing, but it's a very scary word. That is, but you could go in, buy a handgun if you wanted to go buy a handgun. Now, with this permit to purchase, what they are doing is they are requiring that you have the background check, which you have to pay for, and the training course, which you have to pay for, that is very similar to the concealed carry course, where you have to do X number of hours of classroom training, you have to do live fire, things like that. What they're hoping will make it constitutionally permissible, and they're wrong, is that they are not charging for the actual permit itself. So they're they're saying, no, we're not charging for the permit, no problemo there, but they're charging for everything around the permit, which is just, complete garbage. It is, but what is so offensive to those of us who actually, are 2A advocates, is that they are saying they're doing this because it will, quote, cut down on gun violence and crime. And that is just complete.
The statistics have never backed that argument up in any state anywhere that I've seen, and I've read a whole lot about it. So,
correct.
Yes. I mean, the states that are experiencing the most gun violence are the states, frankly, with the most, the strongest gun control laws. The strictest. I mean, look at Chicago in the month of May so far, right? And we're 2/3 of the way through May. We're not quite through with May. There have been 182 shootings in Chicago alone, and it doesn't get right in Chicago, 182. This past weekend, there were 43.
Yes.
Right. You can't get stricter gun control laws, which don't work, by the way, than you do in Illinois or Chicago. So it looks like, unfortunately, you may be heading towards Chicago way.
Well, and I mean, one of the things that is, and of course, as a chairperson for a party, and a former candidate, you learn that we have low information people out there. And the low information people, it sounds good. Oh, we're passing this permit to purchase because it's going to cut down on gun violence. That's all they hear. And of course, the media is in the bag for them too, talking about how wonderful this is. Moms demand action. Everybody is there. Our attorney general is there going, this is the greatest thing ever, when they're hypocrites. This is, and so a lawsuit was filed within 4 hours of when this was signed, that is basically saying, looking for injunctive relief. The problem is, the wheels of justice, quote unquote, don't move quickly in this kind of thing. We're still litigating the one from 2 years ago. So in the meantime, all of our rights are being abridged. Now, on the permit to purchase, the way that it is written and in the final version, it's going to take about 18 months for it to kind of be ready for the rollout. Huge fiscal note on it, because it's the permit section is actually going to be through our state police, which is quite a burden. And even the colonel of the state police testified that we need cops on the street, not cops that are, sitting there dealing with permits to purchase. And you have to complete a firearms course within 5 years. The permit is now good for 2 years instead of 1 year. The very early versions were 180 days. So they were absolutely trying to, put the screws to everybody. But what a lot of people don't know, and what makes this, what I'm going to say, so much more offensive here in Delaware, is that in Delaware, our Article 1, Section 20 is our right to bear arms. And I'm going to read it because it is broader than the Second Amendment. Listen to this. It says,
really,
a person has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of self, family, home, and state, and for hunting and recreational use. That is our constitutional provision, broader than the Second Amendment. And so in terms of kind of looking at this and saying, okay, so we live in a state where you actually enjoy greater rights, because it actually says hunting and recreational use. It's not just about the defense of self and others, like the Second Amendment is, that we can have this, a bridging of constitutional rights. And what we have seen, and I know I keep referencing 2 years ago, but 2 years ago is when, they did this with guns. They did this with voting rights. I sued over vote by mail while I was running for attorney general and won. It's unconstitutional here in Delaware, but they actually took the position on the General Assembly floor. Yeah, it may or may not be constitutional. We'll let the courts sort it out. That's just offensive on its face, that you're going to say, yeah, we might be abridging your rights, but hey, what the hell? We'll let the courts sort it out, is a breach of their duty as far as I'm concerned.
Well, look, using the courts as an offensive weapon is old hat at this point for most of the Democrats. I guess my question is, so I, full disclosure, I have a concealed carry permit in 40 some odd states, and so therefore I have to run around sometimes taking lots of different tests to renew my license in various states on a non-resident basis. How is this different? And I do have DC and I do have Maryland, which this sounds a lot like that. What's the difference between them? Because it's onerous as hell, I can tell you, and you got to keep, and there's a practical, and you have to, and there's no open carry, obviously. So it's different, but it just sounds like it's sort of like after Bruin in New York, the Bruin decision in New York in 2022. What did the New York legislature do? They came up with sort of another way to try to get around it, much like the Biden administration tried to get around the Supreme Court's decision on student loan handouts.
Right.
Forgiveness. They're always trying to find a way using a legal strategy, and we're always on defense.
Well, okay. And I also, full disclosure, a very similar situation. Yeah. If you, in the position as a person who has run for governor and AG and is now a party chair, I would be crazy, and did criminal defense. So I would be crazy, to not have, a concealed carry. But the difference here, and as an aside, in this permit to purchase, if you are a concealed carry holder in Delaware, you do not have to go through this process. So there is a carve out for the concealed carry holders. But in answer to your question, if I want to be a concealed carry holder, totally different argument about whether, that is constitutional, that we have to go through the process. But it is, I'm going to use the word, a privilege, quote unquote, to be able to carry concealed, and to, you make the choice, if you're going to do that, to to go through the course of study, to do the live fire and do all of that. The permit to purchase affects everybody, even the person who doesn't have any desire to conceal carry but wants to have, I don't know, a gun in their home for self-defense. Now, if you just want to, you don't want to be an active person, and again, a whole nother philosophical conversation. If you're going to be here's my commercial. If you're a concealed carry person out there and you're not doing live fire training monthly, you should be. I mean, if you're going to go through this, you need to be adept with your weapon. But just the regular person out there who is trying to exercise their constitutional right to own a gun, however they want to use it, if they want to have it in a drawer next to their bed, now has to go through a process. They have to go through a background check, which of course you would have to do as a purchase anyway. But this is about the training. This is now saying, in order to even own a gun, you have to go through this training. Is it, I'm going to use the word, a good idea? Sure. But should it be mandatory? I mean, this is a mandate now for a constitutional right, not a privilege. And there is a huge difference between that, in my view, that, that they have just trod upon by doing this. Well, and then the other thing is that it also, at the end of the day, it actually impacts low income people more. So we're already in a tough economy right now where people are paying more for food and gas and all of these things. And we live in a state where we have an attorney general who's not prosecuting gun crimes. Wilmington in Newcastle County at one point was in the top 5 murder cities in the country. We've got low income people who, the facts support, Black purchasers, Black women are the biggest purchasers of guns right now in Delaware. And, and you start looking at the disparate impact of any low income, white, Black, whatever the nationality is, but you have now the people who need the guns the most to defend themselves are now not able to go through or spend the money to do that. That is, that's why it's so foul.
And we see that all the time, these things that are, good, intended consequences, whatever, that actually hurt the people they say they care about the most. So if we say we care about, people in low income, high poverty areas, high crime areas, but we don't want them to defend themselves.
What we found. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there was a glitch here, folks.
All right, go ahead.
Ericka, all yours. Nope, all yours.
No, I was just saying it's, we say we want to help people and then we don't give them the opportunity to defend themselves. And it's, where's my tinfoil hat? Okay. But you're telling me that the people buying the most guns right now are Black people. And we know that the history of gun control is actually racist. So, we can't have, Black people buying guns and defending themselves. That'd be terrible. I'm assuming people are making these accusations against them. I can't be the only one who's thought of this.
And I would say something else, Julianne, is it's interesting you should bring that up, because I also work with a behavioral science company that does a lot of polling. And in addition to the sportsmen who want to own firearms, and this is not particular to Delaware, by the way, but in addition to the sportsmen who want to own firearms and the constitutionalists who support the right to bear arms because it's in the Constitution, we found exactly what you just referenced, that there's a large segment of inner city population, man or woman, we found, who want to own guns for a very more practical reason, which is to defend their family. So what you're saying is this Delaware law really strikes at the very heart of that, which precludes them from exercising their rights of self-defense to defend their families.
In a state where we have a police shortage, because it's, again, goes back to, if you have an attorney general that is dropping charges, I mean, who wants to be a cop in that environment? You work your butt off to arrest people and the charges get dropped. So we have, for the past several years have had, cops retiring early, taking advantage of that. They've done their time and they're out. So we have a shortage of law enforcement, which then, of course, makes it so that me, the citizen, or we, the citizens, have to defend ourselves potentially, and you take away our ability to defend ourselves. So, I mean, it is a powerfully bad cocktail that is, that unfortunately is going to take time to legally sort out.
No, I understand. Look, I mean, why should Delaware be different than any other blue state? And I say that respectfully to you, who's fighting the good fight, on a constitutional basis. But Julianne, or Madam Chairwoman, as I like to call you, I know you have a time scheduled to meet, so I want to thank you for joining us on Of the People, and I want you to come back, because I want to know what happens with this law, because we try to track those things. I cannot imagine in the wake of Bruin, certainly in the wake of Heller, which was much more broad, but in the wake of Bruin, that this can't stand up. I guess it's a question of how long it's going to take the courts to respond to this, but appreciate you fighting the good fight, and thank you so much for coming on and joining us today to tell us what's going on in Delaware with yet another state's gun grab, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. Happy to come back at any time, and we'll keep you updated. But I'm sure they filed this in federal court because of Bruin, because that has been the precedent that they have to, come under. So always very happy to be here.
Appreciate it. I have to give you one last shout out, because as I recall, and this is nothing to do with guns, but you were at the rally, the Trump rally in Wildwood, were you not?
I was.
And I'm a Jersey boy. I was born and raised in Jersey. Of course, South Jersey, we don't really consider Jersey, but that's okay. Anything south of Cherry Hill. But in any event, totally. But I do believe the president gave you by name a shout out.
He did.
At the rally, which tells me what a good job you're doing fighting the fight in Delaware. So thank you for joining us, and please keep up the good work.
I will. I told him we're going to deliver Delaware, and he was like, "You're sure?" And I said, "We're going to deliver Delaware. No vote by mail here." He beat Biden in Delaware on the machines in 2020. He lost because of vote by mail. That Donald Trump can win Delaware.
Ooh,
excellent.
I love it. I love it.
We're going to hold you to it.
Thank you, Chairwoman Murray.
All right, take care, guys.
We're going to hear from another defender of American freedom, ASIC.
America came into being based on a shared belief and a common set of values. Unlike other nations that were bound together based on common ancestry, race, or caste, we came into being based on a simple and shared set of ideals. That the power of government is based on the consent of the governed. That life, the freedom to live life on our own terms in our own way, free from government interference, and liberty, our most precious value, and the pursuit of happiness, which means we are free to pursue that which we choose, with the knowledge and courage to know that nothing is guaranteed to us in this life. Those values, America was founded on these basic inalienable rights. Freedom to pray to God in our own way. Freedom to think and speak freely without fear of punishment or harm. And freedom to gather in our places of worship and in our local taverns. And freedom to defend ourselves, our families, our homes, and our neighbors as we see fit. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is dedicated to protecting American exceptionalism anywhere and everywhere it is threatened.
ASIC is a 501c3 and depends on your tax-deductible donations. Please help us continue our fight.
And we're back.
And we are back. That was, those kinds of interviews, and thank you again to the chairwoman for taking time out of her schedule to come, just frustrates me to death. That look, I'm so tired of us being on defense. Look, I am a strict constitutionalist. The Second Amendment is about as black and white. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. I mean, how difficult is that to interpret? Now, this is from a party. Shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed. Of course, this is from the other side where they're still trying to define what the meaning of the word is, right? So
I mean, here's the deal. Okay. You know that, bruh. Okay. I don't care what semblance of decorum or dignity was left in politics, but when Bill Clinton said, what it depends on what your definition of the word is, it was all over. It was all over from there.
Well, it's not only the definitional games, it's also statistics, right? Statistical games. What's the expression? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. So in this whole gun violence, they always say, well, it's going to reduce gun violence, it's going to reduce homicides, it's going to reduce suicides, it's going to reduce. I mean, and yet, I defy anyone to show me an actual study that is verifiable and you can replicate, or you can just go through the numbers that actually demonstrates that, because the bad guys are always going to get guns because they don't follow the law.
Robert, here's the thing. I'll even give them their statistics. Okay. I'll even be super generous, and I'll give you that these laws may reduce crime or problems or whatever. However,
it's not
it
there.
will also reduce the approximately 1.5 million defensive uses of a firearm every year. So if there's 30,000 uses of a firearm a year in the country that are bad, and 1.5 million uses that are good.
Wait, where are you getting these numbers from? Are these accurate numbers?
It's about that. So there's something like, there's something like 30,000, and I'm giving rough numbers because it fluctuates slightly every year. But if you look, there's about 30,000-ish homicides every year. There's another 20 or 30,000 suicides every year with a gun. And then by all estimates, there's at least 1.5 million defensive uses of a firearm every year.
Okay, well, look, I just think
that
statistics are used.
Who was it? Sorry, it was Lot. Was it
That's
Lot?
Okay.
Dr. Lot? It was. I had a guy on Generally Irritable that was. It was an incredibly fascinating. What the heck was? Would you look that up, Lord Redic? What organization he leads. Very fascinating. We'll put it in the chat, in the description.
Okay. So, and the thing with statistics, right? So I'm going to segue now from guns to the Middle East. Did you, and we're staying with, no, because there are no guns in the Middle East. No, just kidding.
I'm like, that's a segue.
So, but it's about statistics. I want to stay with the concept of statistics. So, there's this whole thing now going on in the Middle East where, first of all, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has sworn out an arrest warrant, not only for Netanyahu, but for the head of Hamas. And, basically in the middle of a war, they have an arrest warrant for a leader who's fighting a war to defend the existence of his own country, which is a whole different issue. But they're also, and the reason they're doing that is they're accusing the Netanyahu government of genocide and of intentionally starving all these children. And the number that is out there, here's the statistic, is 35,000. Supposedly, there have been 35,000 deaths in Gaza as a result of Israel. That was put out by Hamas. That was echoed by the UN, only to have now come out and the UN said, oops, we made a mistake with our statistics, and it's 50% lower than what we told you. So Hamas, here you go. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has revised its data pertaining to the number of Palestinian casualties in the 7-month Gaza war.
So my bad.
Wait. Bad. On May 6th, they said that there was 9,500 women that were killed and 14,500 children. On May 8th, without announcing anything, they dropped that by 50%, 4,000. Look, there's still too many deaths. I get that. But the numbers dropped from 9,500 to 5,000. The numbers dropped from 14,500 to 7,500. And it makes you ask the question. That, right? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. It makes you ask the question that that the UN is getting their numbers from Hamas, who's clearly they're not accurate. First of all, they can't even come up with more than 10,000 names. So how do we get to 35,000? They parrot that information. The White House parrots that information, and it's already out there. Then without telling anybody, they dial back the numbers.
Wow.
The statistic. by 50%. And by the way, if they're getting their numbers from Hamas, right? How, and they have to revise their numbers. What do you think the real numbers were? Because Hamas probably said, oh, it's got to be at least 50% less, which means it's probably significantly less than that. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, we're not arguing that, that any deaths are okay, but understand that this is in the context of a war of survival.
Yeah.
And we can argue whether or not it's been prosecuted well or inefficiently. That's a whole different conversation. But lies, damn lies, and statistics. How do you put out a number 35,000 are dead? Issue an arrest warrant for the leader of a free nation who's fighting a war of self-defense, right? Then revise it by 50% and still accuse him of genocide.
I don't know how you do that. I also
right.
I don't know how you redefine genocide. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, because me and English aren't good friends. Okay.
Ain't got no good English.
But here's what I'm thinking. Okay. If it were in fact a genocide, the number would actually be significantly higher than the number reported. If it were a genocide, they would have just carpet bombed the place and murdered everybody. I'm so sick of this. This language is so stupid. It is, it's all of it, whether it's the inflated numbers or the language they're using, is to make it seem worse than it is. And for you to take sympathy away from Israel for having had a terrorist organization on its border for years, constantly attacking them.
So the International Court said the following, that killing more than 35,000 people in Gaza, according to the Hamas-led health ministry, starvation as a method of war, the intentional targeting of civilians, extermination and persecution. Those are the war crimes that they are charging Israel with, right? So, and then you have the U.S. government, whose State Department puts out the following statement that, quote, it's reasonable to assess that Israel has committed war crimes with the U.S. weapons in Gaza and the West Bank, but we could not make a conclusive finding because American officials did not have the ability to make determinations on specific incidents. Right? So let's go back to words and deeds and leadership, right? You have the Biden administration, President Biden on Holocaust Memorial Day gets up and says, never again. And the next day, because Israel has allegedly committed war crimes of which the United States doesn't have proof, but is taking information from Hamas through the United Nations, which is the echo chamber, then says, we're not sending you offensive weapons. But never again, right? I mean, what am I missing? Help me here. It's so far beyond. Where's the outrage? I was actually gonna play the little "Where's the outrage" montage, right there. Oh, I love
said
that.
it, but then I was like, "That's funny though," and I don't know if I can crack a joke right now.
Yeah.
My gosh.
I sit here and I just look at, you know how I like to print all this stuff out. I mean, but if you want to go to Where's the Outrage, my favorite Where's the Outrage today is, and look, I was never part of the Boy Scouts, but I just learned that the Boy Scouts are changing their name.
Oh God.
Did you know that?
What is it? Trans Scouts of America now?
In 2025, the Boy Scouts are going to change their names from Boy Scouts of America to Scouting America.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's a reason. The president says the goal is to reduce as many barriers as possible to ensure everyone can accept the organization and can join. And they're having a really good year, right? In 2019, they had 2 million members. And 4 years later, they've dropped to 1 million members.
Oh, you mean so being inclusive hasn't been a success for them?
Wait.
Shocking.
The Boy Scouts was established in let me, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you the difference. The Boy Scouts were established in 1910 in this country, Boy Scouts of America. And the motto back then was to, quote, teach patriotism, courage, self-reliance, and kindred value. So that's over 100 years ago when they were founded. The new motto is to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetime
What does that even mean?
Well,
What does
according
that
to
even
Scout
mean?
Value. Well, you remember how they're changing the motto at West Point, right? You know, same kind of thing. So it says according to Scout values, but then you have to refer to another document, right?
What are Scout values?
I don't know. Lord Redic can look it up. But I mean,
Oh my
where's the
God.
outrage? By the way, if girls can now join Boy Scouts of America,
Can't even. No, you cannot join Girl Scouts. No.
well, why not?
Because just like in marriage, we're not like we're one flesh and I get to have your stuff. No, it's not that. I don't Robert, I can't, you know, I do joke. I do actually say that to Benjamin when I want to eat food off of his plate. I'm like, baby, we're in one flesh.
You say, excuse me, you're gonna eat that? Boom, right, exactly.
Like, Robert, tell me something. Tell me, okay.
I'll tell you anything.
Here is a serious question.
Okay.
Do you find it offensive that sometimes your wife doesn't want to hang out with guys and sometimes she just wants to be around other women?
No. As long as I'm allowed to hang out with other guys.
And isn't there no matter how much you love your wife, isn't there times you just do not want to be around someone with 2 X chromosomes? You just want to be with your dudes, talking about dude stuff.
Excuse me. As a guy in his 60s, I have learned not to answer those kind of questions because there is no right answer.
No.
And any answer I give you, it's sort of one of those, well, how long has it been since you've stopped beating your wife kind of question?
No,
right?
no.
I mean, it's just,
Robert,
it is a no-win scenario.
Here's the deal. Lord Redic has a standing bro date on Thursday nights. I know he's going out with his homeboys on Thursdays, and I love it because you know what? Then I have the house to myself. It's peace and quiet, and I get to like.
Well, I'm not arguing he
like
shouldn't.
a starfish on the bed because he doesn't, you know, and like it's.
I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing about answering your question.
The point is, everybody knows that men and women are different, and we need different things, and we
not anymore.
And we need to be cultivated differently.
No. There is no difference between the genders. As a matter of fact, there aren't 2 genders. There are like 18. I want to personally transform into a minotaur because that whole horse body thing, I think I could run quick. So, sorry, I had to go there. You know, I'm trying to have some water.
I can't
And don't die on me, please. Not in the middle of the show. You can die after the show, but not on the show. So
that might get us some clicks. The co-host dies of a heart attack during the show.
So look, play the where's the out, you know, where's the outrage? Because I do have one other outrage here.
Oh, okay, hold on.
WTO. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? The outrage over where's the outrage? 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 Where do we go from here? And folks, where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? Where do we go from here? So my first sense of outrage. The outrage.
Who did Bang Bang with Fang Fang?
Outrage. WTO. The outrage.
And on that note, thank you for being with us. Stay tuned.
Okay. If the point is that I say, where's the outrage a lot, I think your point is well taken. But that's because there's so many things that are outrageous. I mean, so for instance, there is a city councilwoman, what's her name? Rosanna Rodriguez, who basically she's an elected official. She is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. So she's a socialist. I mean, we're not labeling her that. That's the party she's affiliated with.
Yep.
And she basically says that it's racist. This now, by the way, this explains why there's 182 shootings in Chicago in the month of May that's not even completed yet, and 43 last weekend. She basically says that it's racist to punish criminals, and America is a garbage society. Now, this is a publicly elected. look, I was going to say Rosanna Dana, but then I'd be aging myself and I'd be disparaging the Italian community, which I'm not trying to do.
My mom,
but her name is
character on Saturday.
Rosanna Rodriguez, an alderwoman in Chicago, member of Democratic Socialists, says the following: policing and the entire criminal injustice system are themselves essential to maintaining white power and control. Changing the culture of policing would require getting rid of the soil in which it grows, and eradicating white supremacy. Police ensuring safe streets is racist. And here's my favorite line in all of this, which is white supremacy, systemic racism, and exclusion are the root of the issue of violence. So people committing crimes, this is like AOC, right? It justifies it because, well, they're only committing crimes because of white supremacy,
white people,
or white. Well, no, yeah, people of color, or is it? Fault. By the way, what's BIPOC? BIPOC, something peoples of color, right? Biracial, something, I don't know.
No, it's
what's
the
BIPOC?
Indigenous. What is it? Biracial, indigenous. Oh, Black indigenous people of color.
Black and so basically, when BIPOC people commit a crime, it's because of white supremacy. Yep. When BIPOC people commit a crime, it's systemic racism.
Yep.
And exclusion, right? And you sit here. Oh, and by the way, if you say Blue Lives Matter, that's racist.
Oh, you're definitely a racist.
Sure. But where's the outrage? So this is an alderwoman or an alderman. Maybe she's an alderman or an alder thing or an alder.
She might be an alder they.
Alder they. Which, by the way, these are the same people who want to change the term manhole cover to people hole because it's sexist. So you just, I'm sorry. We cover so much serious stuff, and this is a serious topic. But I sit here and I feel like a scene from a Monty Python movie where I want to just bang myself over the head with a wooden, a wooden plank, because where's the outrage? And
how much do you want to bet she also is for gun control? So not only should we not have police on the streets because that's racist, you also should not have a gun to protect yourself because that also is racist.
Which, by the way, she goes on to say, and this is, I missed this one. Someone accused her of being racist against white people.
Oh,
and her response was, "Did you call me a racist against white people? Reverse racism is not a thing. So I have nothing else to contribute here." I sit here and go, okay. So on top of everything else, systemic racism, white supremacy racism, race racism, whatever, reverse racism is not a thing.
You're right.
Where's the outrage?
You're right. Reverse racism is not a thing because it's just racism. It's just racism. You're just a racist.
No. She's saying that BIPOC people,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, it sounds like a Star Trek episode, BIPOC or something like that. Maybe Star Wars, right? But
yeah,
what is it? Black indigenous people of color cannot be racist towards white people. White people can only be racist towards
stupid
BIPOC.
That's not even true.
But this is an elected official. It brings back Ben Franklin, right? Whose quote was loosely translated, "We tend to get the type of representative government we deserve."
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the quote where it was like, people deserve to get democracy good and hard or something like that? It was like, oh, you want democracy? Yeah, you get it. You deserve it good and hard. Or that failed. That landed terribly, y'all.
That was a bit of a spud, but that's okay. But which, by the way, I don't even know what that quote. Usually I can follow your lead. If you're going to come out with a quote, I can go, "Oh, that's what she means." Yeah, I can bail her out here. I can do that, but I can't do that on this one because I have no idea what you're even talking about. But what I will tell you is, you keep saying democracy, and you and I both know when things are running well, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. So
that's right.
There is that.
Yes.
So
correct. So what do you think about this new definition of racism that has nothing to do with whether or not you just hate people based on their skin color? It's if you have power. Okay. You have power.
Wait a minute. So we've talked about this. So
yeah,
the world is now seen, through the prism of the oppressor versus the oppressed. Look, when you look at Israel, right?
Yeah.
They are considered to be an oppressor nation. Therefore, the attack from Hamas on Israel is justified. When you look at people with the class warfare, men versus women. Men have power over women. They're oppressors. Therefore, they're racist. Everything is viewed through that colored lens. Pun fully intended, ladies and gentlemen. That colored lens of oppressor versus oppressed. Barack Obama, we've talked about this till we're blue in the face, grew up, looked and sees the United States as an oppressor colonial nation. Therefore, again, everything is now class and race and identity based politics. It's no longer a meritocracy. It's no longer about being the best that you can be. It is a victimhood based on one of those factors, and therefore based on the wackadoodle lady in Chicago, right? The knucklehead lady in Chicago. That's her worldview, which is racism can exist from black people to white people because you have the power, and therefore the only way that racism can exist is from white people who have the power to black people or BIPOC. Is that like bipod? Does that mean she's got like? Never mind. Never mind.
Well, here's what I do know. Hold on. I found the quote. Okay, it's by H.L. Mencken. Democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard.
Got it. And on that note, Lord Benjamin says, I'm not even touching that. Okay. Because anything that's sort of that's one of those questions that no matter what I say, it's going to be wrong. So I'm not even going there. But ladies and gentlemen, where can they find us, Ericka? Okay, and don't forget about Israel Appreciation Day.
That's right. So we're going to do a quick plug for Israel Appreciation Day as we switch to free speech platforms only. And when we get there, y'all, and then
I'll answer that comment that you just made about H.L. Mencken's quote.
Yes. Okay. And when we get there, if you're watching on Rumble or Twitter, you'll be able to see Robert as a Minotaur. Okay. That is what you come here for, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't wait.
So follow us. If you've been watching this long, we thank you. Give the video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe on all of the platforms and podcastings and things, and hang on with us for a little bit of after hours, y'all. All right, hang on.
Why Israel Appreciation Day? Because no one is telling the Israel story about why Israel's existence is so important, not just as a Jewish state and not just as an ally of the United States, but for all the positive achievements Israel has contributed to the world in science, technology, medicine, human rights, religious freedoms, rule of law, democracy, and so on.